Welcome to Philly Fortune Talks with your host, Jake Penny, where the city's brightest minds share the secrets behind their success. Are you ready to be inspired?
Welcome to Philly Fortune Talks. This is your host, Jake Penny. Today, we're thrilled to introduce Brian, a visionary executive in the real estate industry and founder of Designblendz. His entrepreneurial journey began at 10 years old. That's awesome. Selling video game servers and playing professionally. His pursued architecture design in restaurants, not working them, and founded Designblendz in 2011. What started a blog, he evolved into a full-service firm recognized on the Inc. 5000 list in Philadelphia's 100 fastest growing companies. Designblendz excels in architecture, 3D visualization, metaverse designs, and real estate development, serving clients like the PGA Golf, GoPuff. He is passionate about helping aspiring entrepreneurs, and he is a host of the New How podcast. Brian, it's a pleasure to have you today. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Jake. I appreciate it.
So if you don't mind, give us a little bit introductory about yourself that I didn't do that great of a job doing.
Look, Jake, if I ever step on stage someday, I would want you to exactly say what you just did getting up on stage. But like you said, truly what I'm best at is I am a visionary in my organization, and any organization I get involved with, I somehow can look ahead and see things and predict things. And I thought everybody could do that, but I just happen to do it a little bit better than most. When I try to touch things, that's usually when things go to hell. But that I know my best role in an organization, and it's truly a visionary. Designblendz, like you said, what we do best is we use the 3D virtual environment to help create solutions for the built world, and that bridges across a lot of different things. Obviously, architecture. We're designing single family homes up to 300 unit multifamily projects to municipal buildings. We do a lot of facilities management. Pico's one of our clients, and Exelon. So we touch a handful of different market sectors on the architectural front. But obviously, on the visualization side, we have an in-house CGI firm here that creates some of the most photorealistic virtual environments for very large clientele all around the world at this point. We get hired when things need to look like they're complete, but they're not actually there yet. That's kind of what our MO is on that front. But we do that in still imagery, some GIFs, some motion graphics, animation work, 360 points, VR, AR. That my team creates all of those different assets for a variety of different end goals for my clients.
That's awesome. It's awesome that you're in the real estate industry and being super innovative with that stuff. Do you work with a lot of developers and pre-selling these models before they're even built, giving those people that real life feeling? Is that almost exactly what you do?
We actually were one of the first to do that in Philadelphia back for a gentleman by the name of Eric Aronson from Remax Realty. He was selling a handful of new construction homes in the Northern Liberty market. And we came in back in, I guess, I want to say this was like 2013, maybe 2014, and did a whole pre-visualization package. And he pre-sold a bunch of units without sticking a shovel in the ground. And that was kind of the start to, what we did on the visualization side. And obviously today we work with a handful of developers. Last year in the city, we handled about 22% of all the single and multifamily units approved in the city of Philadelphia through our architectural firm. So we've worked or know of most developers in the city. We have that down, that process down. We think pretty streamlined to help our clients.
That's awesome. So tell us about like a big win early on in your career, whether in Philadelphia, for instance.
I think the biggest win, for one, the process to date, is kind of obviously my favorite part at DB. But I think one of the biggest wins was, we started out of our college dorm room,
Awesome.
and, we just onboarded, we have 31 people in my organization. And I think just being able to do that in Philadelphia, starting from nothing and growing to, one of the fastest companies in the world, saying that we did that in Philadelphia is everything. And I think that's testament to what the city allows.
Yeah, if you don't mind, take us on that journey. What does that look like?
From the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, back in college, when we started DB, it was as a blog, like you mentioned in my intro. We used to write about different disciplines of design, how they'd work together, like how a fashion designer and an architect would team up to create a cool, amazing, outfit that would then go on the runway, right? Or how an industrial designer and a graphic designer would do something amazing together. And we would write about it. We would make these articles, and that was the origins of what Designblendz was. And you fast forward to today, we're doing the exact same thing. We're just, instead of writing about it, we're actually doing it. We have graphic designers, architects, industrial designers, animators, project managers, coders working together to create amazing results for the built environment. And that's always been at the core of what Designblendz was originally, is bringing different disciplines of design together to just create a better world. And now that is both spans the virtual and the physical realm.
Okay. Now you said you have all these different components moving on simultaneously at any given moment in your organization. So obviously there's a lot of leadership and management going on. So what are maybe some challenges and successes that you've had just building that whole corporate culture to make sure everything works, efficient?
Yeah, look, the biggest thing that I see other entrepreneurs struggle with is the ability to step away. When I bring an employee into my office, they ask, well, what's the management style? What do you like, right? They want to know like how I'm going to treat them as a boss, right? And I say, you'll never see micromanagement from me. I set the expectations in my organization. I hire people to deliver those expectations far and beyond what I could have imagined, right? I want the smartest people in the room doing that for me. I never want to be the person to say, hey, this is how we should be doing a rendering, right? But the expectation better be that rendering doesn't look like a rendering. It looks like a photorealistic image that looks complete and you can't tell the difference, right? That's the expectation. And when it doesn't meet that, I'll raise my hand. But other than that, you're not going to hear from me. And I think that's something that, as you're growing a business, from one person to your first hire, now there's 2 of you, to 5 to 10, upwards of 30 where I'm at in this organization, there's levels that you have to be okay with allowing others to do. And that's got to be the biggest hardship for most entrepreneurs. They can't get out of their own way. And it took me time. Trust me, I used to do the renderings. I used to do the drawings. Like when I stopped caring what color the brick was and more worried about the customer service component, that the customer was happy at the end of the day, my organization changed. And that's what entrepreneurs need to realize when growing a business. You got to find the right people that are way more competent than you and let them do their thing the way they know how to do it.
Right. I mean, you can't climb Mount Everest alone.
No.
And that is a big, big thing in the entrepreneurial world is people are too control happy. I guess maybe you call it that. They think they're the only person that can do it the way they do it. Well, sorry to tell you, there's a lot of people out there that are way better at way better than you at what you do. That you could hire out and totally make everything a lot more scalable.
What's scary at this point, right? If you just think about what we said, when I bring an intern here from one of the local universities, and by the end of the summer, they're way more competent at putting together a building than me on paper.
Yeah.
Right. I might be able to go out and understand, nuances of construction better than they can, right? Because I've just been in it. But that intern is going to know how to do a zoning drawing. I couldn't do a zoning drawing if you paid me an unlimited amount of money right now.
Right.
That's how far I've stepped out of the organization to allow myself to scale it to 31 people in multi-states and around the globe at this point for the customers we work for.
Yeah. Anything that, we do in our companies, we're always, when we're bringing on a new person or teaching someone, we always teach them into a way that where they be able to do it better than us and go out on their own and do it. Yeah. Right. But they want to be involved and they see the vision, the purpose, and the bigger picture on staying on board with us. So that way, whatever that may be. Yeah. Yeah, so they're better than us at the end of the day, but they just want to stay on board because they love the corporate culture, they see the vision, the mission, and everything like that. So when building you built your dream team. Not when. What was one core trait that you really, looked for in those people when hiring, and why?
It's a great question. And I'm going to tell you the secret. I'm going to tell you the secret sauce that took me, I've been running Designblendz now 12 years, right? We're not a little we're not a startup. We're far beyond a startup. Payroll's a real number every 2 weeks. But the biggest thing that took me probably 60 to 70% into that journey, what mattered more than anything, were core values. We really had to define what the culture was going to be like at Designblendz. We always knew it, but we never wrote it down and held ourselves to that standard. So if you go on my website, designblendz.com, you go to the top right, you go to the About Us, and you click core values, right? I use that core values, those 6 core values that exist on there: never settle, honesty, integrity, passion, quantity with quality, lead by example, and innovation, right? Those 6 core values define everything we do and the people that I employ. Now, any decision I make that I'm unsure about have to run through that filter. Is this new thing we're doing, is it innovative? Does it raise the standard? Does it never settle of what we previously did, right? We did a drawing set this way. Does it make it better, right? And how we do anything, if I'm going to ask one of my employees to do something, I need to be willing to do it myself, right? So little things like that, every decision and every person I hire, my questions are geared towards that, because if you have those 6 core values within you, you're going to excel tenfold at my organization. If you're not innovative, if you don't care to do things better the next time, you're going to literally be walked out the door, or you're going to leave yourself, because you have to build a team around those values. And it took me a long time to figure that out. It was not right away where I was like, ooh, let me just hire a new person. No. I'm going to hire a new person, but they're going to be heavily vetted across those values, because if they don't have them, it's not going to work, and they're going to drain the rest of the staff here.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. Whether it's, hiring a new person, or, you working in real estate development, hiring a new builder or anything in that, whether it's on the builder side, getting new tenancies or long-term tenants, whatever it may be. I rather have that position not filled, or not have a tenant or whatever it may be in there just for sake of convenience. I'd rather it take longer and make sure the right person is in that position or in that development property or whatever it may be, to know that going forward, it's going to be exactly almost to plan.
Yep, exactly.
So everyone hits a speed bump in their journey in entrepreneurship. What did it look like for you in design and real estate development, everything like that?
I feel like I hit speed bumps every day. I think that's just something to realize as an entrepreneur, and especially in the real estate realm. Obviously COVID was a bump for everybody. If someone tells you COVID didn't affect them, they're BSing you. I don't know if we could curse on here, but I'm just saying BSing you, right? But COVID was the true test for most organizations. And I think you're still seeing the remnants of that. You're still seeing brokerages go away. You're still seeing teams evaporate. COVID's a real thing, and the lingering effects of that are still hitting organizations. And I think that was something, that, as a visionary entrepreneur, right, the challenges and problems that came with that on almost a daily basis during that time were staggering. Like one example, we're working, and all of a sudden there's a news announcement where it's at like, go home. We're like, it's 2:00 on a Wednesday, and we're like, what? What do you mean just go home? Like, ooh, but again, it's like our organization was set up for remote work well in advance. Our infrastructure was ready to go for this. All we had to do was up our internet speed, right? And that's just part of entrepreneurship, is planning ahead, because speed bumps are going to come, and you can't anticipate all of them. You just have to have the right framework set and have the right mental stability to be able to handle them.
Yeah, and going back to your core values, be innovative.
Correct. Absolutely.
So you have to be able to adapt with the times, any major events. Shit's going to happen. Shit happens, like you said, on a daily basis.
If it's not happening, if shit isn't happening, I would question whether or not you're actually running a business.
Actually doing something, right?
If you're like, wow, this is all great and this is nice to have my own thing, like, You either got a pot full of money that you don't care that it's being drained, or you're not actually doing anything.
Yeah, or you're just not doing enough to where you have any growing pains or you have to solve shit.
Yeah.
So I always
I
find
kind
that.
of, at this point, I kind of, when you look at problems, you look at them from a first, second, and third world problem, right? Every day I want first world problems. Third world problems are where, like, oh my God, I can't run payroll. I try to avoid that, right? Like, you don't want to ever have third world problems, but like first world problems, like, wow, I can't find enough employees to service all the work I have. That's a first world problem.
That's a good problem, right?
But that's also a level of stress that a lot of people can't handle either. Like, wow, I got to onboard, my organization's grown 25% in employees over the last 3 months. There's challenges with that, right? Like, those are speed bumps that occur. Like, I'll tell you one I'm having right now. I don't know where everybody's going to sit. That's a great first world problem, right? But it's still a problem that needs to be solved and executed, and also have a vision, right? My new office space, wherever that is, whether it's here or another building or downtown, right? Like, that decision is going to drastically affect things in a positive way moving forward. But those decisions now are issues that need to be solved with a methodical way of thinking.
Yeah, and most people don't think that way, I believe, because they think, obviously the more revenue a business makes, the more money they make, but they only look at the front line, the people in the door. Well, what about the people behind the door that make the show go on?
I'm still waiting to make money. That's what's crazy.
What was that? Say that again.
I said, I'm still waiting to make money, right? Like, people don't get it, right? I think growing business, the owner is not taking cash hand over fist. That's a fraction of a fraction of a fraction. Like, I'm a fraction of a fraction to be here after 12 years and operating, almost a $10 million a year A&E firm, right? But I'm not, rolling in it. Right? Like,
yeah,
it's because everything gets reinvested as the business owner.
exactly.
I'm putting every dollar that I don't need to take to live, right? I'm not going to eat ramen noodles, but I'm not dining out at Barclays every night, right? Like, that's the difference. And I think entrepreneurs, think that, oh my God, I'm going to start this business a year from now, I'm going to be crushing it. Like, dude, if I'm not the highest paid employee in my office. That's what's wild, right?
Yeah.
And people don't get that. People just think it's this crazy glorious thing. It's not.
Glamorous thing like Instagram shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, people didn't realize you gave up, 8 years of your life not going out on the weekends, not spending time with family, friends, doing things other people were doing to, build this dream, this vision of yours. And at the same time, probably not making a lot of money like everybody else because you were reinvesting every single dollar into growing and scaling every single day.
Every dollar that I didn't need to exist was going back in.
Yeah, I had this saying to myself, we're still growing in what we do, but it was like, how can I go broke every day? But in a good way, right? Reinvesting every single dollar, making sure that the roof over my head's good, my family's taken care of, and we can have a little bit of fun.
Yep.
But at the same time, I want to keep growing as much as possible because you have to pour money into these things for it to keep going. It's not just
also have money on the sideline for a rainy day, like COVID.
Yeah.
When what if you're like, well, for the next 90 days, there's not going to be cash coming into my business.
Yeah.
How are you going to feel after 90 days? Everyone's going to hurt, but are you still going to be there? Are you going to be telling your employees that they're not getting a payroll? Or are you going to be actually paying them and not having to take any benefits away to the heat of COVID? Dude, there was large architectural firms in the city that cut their workforce down to 32 hours a week. I didn't take one benefit away from my staff. I didn't take away healthcare. I didn't take away 401k. I didn't take away hours they could work. We just maintained. Didn't give raises, but we maintained.
And that's why you're one of the fastest growing architectural firm, and you're going to be on top because you've had those core values, you had corporate culture, and you cared about your people more than you did profits.
Correct.
And that's a big thing in the world is I think you should always put people over profits because at the end of the day, without people, you don't have profits.
Yep.
So what is a day in a life look like for you, juggling everything you have, all the employees, all the different nuances that working components in your business?
I obviously can't do anything without looking at my calendar. There's this old TV show on Nickelodeon. It's this show called Hey Arnold, and a lot of people my generation would know that exact show. And I always come back to this one episode. I don't know the name of the episode, but there was this rich kid that showed up, and he was driving in a limousine, and he constantly was looking at his watch, had his calendar, like every minute filled out. They kind of, the way they spun that was like, that was a bad thing. Well, I will tell you, it's really a good thing. And, I have to be regimented in how I operate on a day-to-day basis or nothing gets done.
Mm-hmm.
But that episode of Hey Arnold made it seem like was that person was always working all the time. Well, yes, in the beginning of entrepreneurship, you're always working. Look, I'm always working 24/7, but that work is altered to whether I'm working on my relationships, my career, my spirituality, or my health, right?
Yeah.
And I break up my day and my week into those time blocks. And look, if any entrepreneur tells you that, oh, it's consistent every single day, unless you're Warren Buffett and you're getting a Big Mac or an egg sandwich in the morning based on how the market is, that's kind of its own thing. But like, yes, there's times where health is more of a priority to me than career. And there's also times where like career takes over and I can't go to the gym for the week, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be okay with that. But what I've started doing, it's worked for me, is like I plan out my weeks. And I make time for my wife, my family, when I'm going away to see friends, or like, I started booking dinners with friends months out. Like if you want to see me, we're talking about July right now.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but like, let's get it on the calendar, right? Like, and that's been something that I've worked through the last couple of years here, like just being regimented in how I deal with my week. And, it's made a big impact. It really has.
It's funny because I couldn't tell you what my day-to-day looks like without looking at my calendar.
Mm-hmm.
Like even my significant other, who's been my partner for the longest time in life and in business, she'd be like, what's going on? I was like, I don't know. I have to look at the calendar. My calendar is shared with you, right?
Yep.
But without time blocking and like having the schedule done throughout the week, if I don't schedule, I'm like, I'm a madman. I'm lost. I have no idea what's going on. And just shit doesn't get done. I got to make time for the gym because in our growing years, my health went to crap. Like you said, making sure that, the 5 pillars of wealth, I call it, there's financial wealth, there's happiness wealth, there's relationship, there's contribution, spirituality, making sure all those things are in synergy at any given time. Because yeah, you could be doing awesome in your business, but at the same time, if all you focus on in your business, well, your family's going to go to shit or your health's going to go to shit. And I'm sure you've experienced that, as most entrepreneurs do. And then we're like, oh shit, we look back and we're like, all right, how can I get this all integrated and not like a work-life balance, more like a work-life integration?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not easy. It's not easy, but as long as you put some mental fortitude towards it, it'll shake itself out.
So what book or podcast? Obviously, you have your own podcast, but what book or podcast, or I don't know, documentary, if that's a thing that's been around for a while, has been most influential to you?
It's a great question. Literally, when people are like, Brian, what's like a good book to read? And again, I'm just gonna plug it. I don't have any royalties. I got no Amazon affiliate link, nothing. But one of the books more recently that's made a massive impact in the way I operate is Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Mm.
By far the most impactful book I've probably ever read in my life. Look, it didn't teach me how to build massive wealth. It didn't teach me how to flip apartments or flip houses, right? But what it taught me is that your habits generate all your results, right? And it's, sometimes you may have really good habits and sometimes you may have really bad habits. And changing those habits happen in atomic ways. And that's been something, once I've realized that, it makes me a lot less stressed. Like, at the beginning of this year, I was upwards of like, 280 pounds. I hate to admit it, but like I had to make changes in my life and I've dropped 35 pounds since, right? It's like, it didn't start by just like stop going to fast food, right? It's like you break that down into micro habits. And, like one of the things I had to learn was like how to eat the proper portions, right? So like that's my first focus, but like it kind of stopped my working out, which is weird. So I just focused on portion control. And then it's like, okay, now that I'm building that habit, it's like, okay, well, let me add in a day a week at the gym. Let that become 2 days, right? So you start breaking your problems, quote unquote, down into, little bits and chunks of achievable results. And it's really changed the way how I just approach everything, whether it's business, personal, relationships, doesn't matter. Like I'll give you a great example. Like my wife and I were like, we got to renovate our bathroom, right? It's like, boom, we could just call a contractor and do it. No, like it's just going to take time. So we pieced it out. We got this contractor that like, you just be okay with like the lowers. Oh, today we're going to pick up the vanity. We're not going to get the vanity to the toilet, the towel rack to this. Like we're just going to get the vanity and make that little micro change towards that end result of a bathroom that literally I'm going to be able to go home today and flush the toilet. The plumber's just finished up replacing the toilet today. But it's like the little habits that create great results.
Yeah, I mean, so I haven't read Atomic Habits. The funny thing is, it's actually sitting in my save for later list in my Amazon. I have a library just like you that I've tried to read one book a week because I just love reading and learning. But now is that what you're saying? Is that because if you give it that full attention, it may take you away, the opportunity cost from something else?
It's not necessarily that. It's also it takes time to build habits, right? So like in chunking them down into very achievable, what is it? Like you have the habit as the atom, but it's like the particles that make up that atom, right? Like that's what you're trying to chunk towards, right? Like it'd be like, hey, I'm 15 pounds overweight, but you start looking at your habits, you realize that every night before bed, you're drinking a glass of whiskey. Right. Well, it's not that you should just stop drinking that whiskey every night. Instead of pouring a 6-ounce pour, you change it to a 3-ounce pour. And now that 3 ounces over every night, compounded month after month, you're instead of being 15 pounds overweight, you might be 7.5 pounds overweight. And it's like you don't just cut it off and go dry turkey, right? You start to break that habit slowly in atomic ways.
Yep.
And you be hyper focused on what you're actually doing to try to break that habit. Obviously, you need to recognize it's a bad habit, but then it's like, just don't stop it. Just, it took you time to build it. So now it's like, how do you unbuild it? Got it. In other cases, you have a really good habit. It's like, how do you improve that habit?
Yeah. So small wins over time is easier to create a habit than just going all in at once.
Correct.
I've had experience with that. At the end of the day, when you go all in at once and just try to overload yourself, it just feels like another job. And hey, we quit. It's like those easy weight loss or those easy food plan things. It's like, oh, for 30 days, blah, 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 you'll be jacked and ripped or whatever. But hell, you're not eating anything and you're working out like a dog. It's not sustainable.
No.
I wish it was. I mean, shit, I wish everything was easy, but it's not.
Yeah, all good results take time.
So how do you approach financial planning to ensure stability and growth, being that you're in real estate development as well and architectural and everything like that? Obviously, that's probably a big component of yours and or multiple income streams.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not everyone has the financial team around them like I do these days, but I will tell you, it wasn't always that way. I had to hire and fire my first accountant, right? Like, my accountant that I had when I was at 10 people is very different from the accountant I have at 30 people. One of the first things that I do when I meet a consultant or someone that's going to work with me, whether it be a lawyer, an accountant, an outside vendor, the first thing I say is, I can't wait for the day where I can get rid of you. I literally say, my accountant will tell you, my current accountant, he yearns for the day where I fire him. I said, I'm either going to hire you or I'm going to fire you. And it's, oh, well, but like you outgrow the people around you. It will always happen, or at least in most cases, in the fact of like a vendor, accountant, CPA relationship, like you're not going to work with a firm out of the bat that's going to be able to deal with 100 employees of yours with multi-trust, estate planning, crazy stuff, right? Like, so you build to that, but you have to also recognize when you're not getting the level of service that you need on that front. Look, and that's the business realm, right? On the personal front, my wife and I, we have a shared house QuickBooks. It's called the Corcodilos household on QuickBooks Online. We have all of our shit linked in, her student loans, my student loans, every credit card, bank account, Venmo, whatever. And once a month we sit down and we go through the shit. And it's like, we have our own, we look at our own P&L every month as a household. It's like, oh, wow. Yeah, I guess we're renovating the bathroom this month. A lot of money went out the door, right? Or, hey, great, we saved this month. Or, wow, holy shit, we spent $1,500 last month out at dinner. It's like, we might want to curtail that back. It's just, and that's kind of the way we operate. And, it allows us just to be on the same page about things.
Yeah, I mean, I think every family should do something like that, because majority of people have no money management skills whatsoever, and they wonder why they have no rainy day fund, or they can't pay this bill or that bill this month, or do the thing that they want to. I'm a member of a mastermind out in Chester County. It's just all local guys. There's 45 some guys, but every single 2 weeks we go over what's called our one sheet, and it's very similar to like Go Abundance or EO in Philadelphia EO. It's like we go over our net worth, how's it changed, tracking our expenses, all the ebbs and flow, P&L and everything like that. But it makes you really aware of like, are you growing or are you dying? Are you wasting money over here, or should it be going over there? But it's really cool that you have a little powwow session with your wife and go everything. We haven't got to that level yet, but we do have everything flow. We set up like a WhatsApp chat, and every single expense that we just, hey, we bought this, we throw it in there, and then at the end of the month she like tallies all up, and we go from there. But going back to the tax thing and the accountant thing, I'm starting to realize that right now, where I've outgrown two or three accountants, and I'm about to outgrow this other one. And then I got a quote to go on with this company called Anderson Advisors, to manage everything. And they sent me oh, this is what it's going to cost. And I was just shell shocked. I was like, oh shit, growing sucks. It does cost money on the back end. And then my one buddy was like, oh, that's not a bad quote. I pay $50,000 just for bookkeeping alone, not even my tax up. I'm like, damn.
I mean, I have a full-time CPA bookkeeper in house. I have an accountant in the background. I have ops people that handle the invoicing. Like, yeah, I mean, I pay easily over a couple $100,000 a year with the amount of entities and things I have moving, just to keep my financial stuff in check.
Yeah,
that's wild, but it's needed when you're running businesses.
Absolutely. And all the state planning and the trust and multi-district jurisdiction LLCs. It's wild. That's a whole job in itself as well.
Yep.
So what are some things that are big on the horizon for you? What are you planning for? What are you striving for?
Look, the one thing, that I, have realized as a visionary, right? My skill set can be applied to multiple industries, multiple businesses. Obviously, I will always be at Designblendz as the visionary, but what I've also realized is that there's people way more competent than me that should be running the architectural firm and running the visualization team, right? If I can just be involved from the fact of like looking at KPIs and how those KPIs are relating to the vision and keep being the visionary, that's where they want me. Right. I'm the one that's connecting dots, that's talking about setting up offices in different regions and finding those operators and going through acquisitions, right? Like that's my job. But I also, am involved in other stuff. I have, we're coming up on our third season of Lincoln Mill Haunted House, which is a haunted house here in Philadelphia that was started almost 3 years ago now at this point, out of a necessity to find a tenant, right? It's like, I apply my same level of visionary skill set to that and find an awesome operator that's running that business. And I stay involved from the visionary standpoint, like, hey, Brian, what do you think of this? And I go, this is how it could affect us 3 months or 3 years from today. That's really what I'm good at. Working on another project, which is an indoor golf project, which should be pretty cool. That'll bring some impact. You'll definitely see that on the news here in Philly when it opens. But just a handful of different businesses. And that's what I'm best at. I really, as myself, I see myself more as a venture firm eventually, where, I have an organization that's just dealing with all the different entities that I touch as a person, and I'm involved as need be to certain ones. Some I might not even touch. I might just be an investor. Others I might be heavily involved in the operations, like Designblendz. Like I will always spend over 50% of my time in that organization until it gets to a point far beyond my capacity. But at the moment, that's where my most of my time is spent.
What does that target look like for you, eventually becoming a venture firm, or just you doing your own enterprise stuff? What does that target day or time look like?
Yeah, I mean, the timeline of that is it's already happening.
Okay.
I don't have, one of my mentors, he's involved in over 48 ventures, right? So you can get a sense for who that type of individual is that's over double my age and still crushing it, right? And what that entails. But I learn a lot from my mentors around me, and that's kind of how they all operate. They all have a main business, or that main business is now a quarter of their time or whatever. And as things scale and grow, you find the right, again, as an entrepreneur, you got to be okay with stepping back and be that entrepreneur, be that business visionary or integrator that allows the other people to do what they're best at. Right? Elon Musk isn't shooting rockets to the moon by himself, right? Like, you got to build the team, and that's truly what I'm building is a team to manage the teams at the end of the day, and that's what I'm getting to at the moment.
That's awesome.
And what I like about it too, which makes it even more fun, like this golf venture, right? Who do you think's doing the architecture work? Who do you think's buying the real estate, right? Who do you like? That's the fun for me. It's like, it's like I can make my own reality in a way, both physical and virtual. But it gets fun in a way when you start stepping back and looking at how you can move the puzzle pieces around truly as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And that's what's exciting. And it also gets even more exciting when you get to your next venture and people saw how successful you were in one, and it's like, hey, Brian, how can I get involved in that next one, right? Like, literally, the money for the golf venture is already raised, and we haven't signed paperwork yet, right? Like, and that'll be fun too, because that's my first SEC filing, so I'm excited for that.
Okay.
So I've never gone through that process before, but I know in the venture space, I'm going to have to get used to it. So we're going to be filing with the SEC on that.
Are you going Reg D, 506C, or 506B?
Now here's the exciting part. I have no clue.
And that's fine. That's why you hired the people to do it.
Exactly. My lawyer's all on top of it. Right? But what I can tell you how it's working is we're taking money and giving equity to people.
Okay.
Right? In
Awesome.
a Series A. So like, boom, they're in. And then if we need to raise money, they can put more, or we can bring on others, right? So whatever that is, whether it's 50421, I don't care. All I know is
it could be either one of them. It just all depends on if it's accredited investors or non-accredited investors, whatnot.
I think they're non-accredited. For this one specifically, is non-accredited. I do know that.
Okay.
But that's why we have to file it properly.
Yeah.
But that's the fun part about knowing what you do best and bringing in the other people to do what they do best. If I had to try to structure this myself, all I know is I'm like, here's the idea. Here's a golf sim business that we're going to do differently and better than every other one that exists. And I have a vision for what that could become and how we scale that and the merch brand around it and how that's going to work. We only need 8 locations around the nation. That's it. It's like, let's go. Now I can put those pieces together, bring in the integrators, bring in the right vendors and consultants around, and it's like, boom, business ready to roll.
That's awesome.
And that's what I like doing. That's as a venturist, right? Like a venture capitalist. I hate that term. It's just like, no, I'm really good at putting businesses together, and I've done it in multiple ways. I've proven myself. Between all my businesses, I have over 100 people, right, employees in all my businesses at the moment. It's like, what's that going to look like when it's 1,000?
Right. Yeah.
And I'm building the team to support that right now.
Yeah, you have a huge creative genius inside you. That once you see the vision, you easily can put the plan into pay to make it happen.
Like, I'll give an example. Like, it's also what becomes fun too as a true entrepreneur. You connect dots, right? Like, that's the hard. Like, you're constantly solving problems and trying to line people up. So one of the things I knew to do right, at least in the haunted house space, because I've grown a handful of businesses, right? Like, there's no video content of me selling Counter-Strike servers when I'm 10 years old. That would have been cool. But like, one of the things I made sure we did this time was we put together a whole behind the scenes documentary for the haunted house called Built to Scare, which we're starting to trickle out little episodes of it. But one of the challenges we ran into originally on that was like, my operator, Jared, he's an evil genius in his own right. Just how he masterminded the haunted house is truly amazing. And if you want to learn more about it, you'll see it in that Built to Scare documentary. But we got all the way through. Jared's an architect. He drew this whole thing out. We got to the point where Jared's like, hey, Brian, we need 280 wall panels, a combination of 4x8 and 2x8 panels that are going to, build this whole maze. And essentially, Jared comes to me and goes, Brian, I made the jig and figures out we're not going to hit our deadline. We have to make 280 panels. We have to order all this wood. We have to jig it all, load it in, drywall on both sides. I'm like, all right, Jared, just let me think, right? Give me a day. Take it home, take it on. I'm going through. I'm like, how do we do this? Like, boom. All of a sudden, literally hits me. I was like, Brian Hunter. Brian Hunter was an old family friend from who I literally probably hadn't talked to in almost a decade at this point. He happens to run or be high up at a place called TIS. TIS stands for Toll Integrated Systems. Toll Brothers.
Toll Brothers, yeah.
I literally called up Brian. I was like, hey, Brian, I'm building a house. He goes, Corcodilos, how you been? Your mother says you've been doing good. What are you building? What house? I said, well, Brian, it's not a house like you think. It's a spooky house. Long story short, fast forward, we saved $30,000. Toll Brothers showed up with an 18-wheeler 2 weeks later with 280 wall panels. We loaded them into the space, and Toll Brothers did a whole quarterly write-up nationally about how Toll printed all these panels for a haunted house in Philadelphia.
That's awesome.
But it's just like that thing could have crippled other operators.
Yep.
Right? It could have. It's just like the thinking that you have to do as a visionary, like how you have to piece and
putting
connect
the
dots. Like it's never ending.
It's what is it with the Who Not How, the book?
Yeah.
The Who Not How.
Yeah.
And that's really cool too. It's been one of my father-in-law's like dream vision to have a like goth outing event space where there's goth over here, there's bago, there's horseshoes, everything like that.
Yeah.
It's funny, like recently, like 2 weeks ago, this deal in Jersey popped up on my email, and it was an outdoor goth thing. Not that I could pull the capital together with such a short notice, and he still is employed, so I wouldn't be able to happen that like overnight or anything like that. But it's like, it's funny that you just told me about that. It's like, oh, interesting.
You connect dots on different things, right?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. But awesome. How can someone get a hold of you or learn more about what you're doing?
The best way, I always say, because I always get to them, because emails get drowned, right? Like, it's crazy. It's like, oh, I emailed you. I'm like, I don't have a full-time assistant going through my emails quite yet, but you miss them. I get hundreds. Literally, if I share my screen right now, you look at my email, you're like, it's just a mess, right? If I always say they want me, they'll email it again and again. But the best way to reach out to me is on Instagram, just at Corcodilos, Corcodilos. Just message me, follow me. I'm always posting stuff on there, just entrepreneurial related stuff. And just message me. It goes down in DMs, right? As they say. Right. And also on LinkedIn too. You can always reach out to me, but I will get back to you. Just be persistent. Don't just like one and done it. Like I will get back to you.
Awesome, Brian. Well, it was a pleasure having you today on Philly Fortunes Talks.
Awesome. Thanks, Jake.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Philly Fortune Talks with Jake Penny. Inspired to share your success story? Visit phillyfortunetalks.com/guest and let's inspire together.